Right, guys, welcome back. This is the Above Average FPL podcast with myself, C White, and Baker FPL 343. How are you this evening, mate?
Very well, mate. Very well. Refreshed, no stress. Quiet week.
Quiet
Still a
week?
bit, still a bit sicky. Bit of germ still, but just about okay.
Excellent, excellent. And for those of you who are watching, you already know what's going on. But for those that are listening, we have got a guest with us this evening, giving us a specialist kind of insight into the man Antonio Conte, Tottenham, and what that means for all of us going forward, particularly in the next few weeks with some of the favourable fixtures coming up. And I was supposed to ask you this before we started, so forgive me if I pronounce it wrong, but I'm going to say it. We've got Gianni Butticè.
Very good, mate. I'm impressed. Not many
Yeah?
get that right. I usually get like Johnny Butticè or something, so I'll take that.
I mean, I didn't ask you, but we did a little bit of checking beforehand.
I like that. Well, you know, it's funny. Like you can check on various platforms and be like, oh, they've pronounced it one way, and then they've pronounced it another, and I don't correct people. So I don't know. I've got good friends that pronounce it wrong, and I still don't tell them. So I'm just used to so many variations, mate. But you did a grand job there.
Well, thanks very much. I'll take that as a compliment. So, in order to find us on Twitter, so the podcast is at Above Average FPL. Baker is at Baker FPL 343. Gianni is at Gianni Butticè, and it's written there for you on the YouTube for you. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You get everything to your device when we release a podcast. We also put a tweet out to let you know that it's there. Please leave a review, guys, and let us know some feedback. Let us know how we're getting on. Obviously, we're now moving a little bit into the YouTube space, just trialing that out and seeing how we get on. Give us some comments. We've had some good ones, and we're always looking to just improve that little bit. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think I said to Twitter, get me to 1,500 followers and I'll do a giveaway. They failed, so I'm not giving anything away. I'm keeping it all for myself.
Pod account needs some love, mate. It needs some love.
I don't tweet enough good stuff. Apart from the content that we do, which is good enough, obviously.
It's good enough. It's good enough.
It should be. So yeah, I think we should go straight into Gianni and yeah, just find out a bit more about you for those that don't know. So just tell us a little bit about you, your FPL history, what you're doing around the FPL community and stuff like that. The floor is yours, mate.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on, guys. I was delighted when Baker reached out and said about sort of, do I want to speak Spurs? I'm very much looking forward to that later. But to give you guys that don't know me a kind of little bit of an intro, I guess I joined kind of. Everyone always says like they join the FPL community, and by that I guess they mean they got a Twitter account, right? I got a Twitter account, I don't know, 3 years ago. It's because I wrote a book about fantasy football and I was like, I need to promote this. And there's this huge community on Twitter. Now, I don't use Twitter, but I'm going to start doing it to promote the book. And then I kind of realized, oh, okay, it's way bigger than I thought. And actually, I quite enjoy the interaction. And then it just kind of grew from there. So I'm very active on Twitter. It was great to kind of discuss the book. Because of the book, which is called FPL Unlocking the Secrets to the Top 1% Finish. You can buy it in very few good bookshops, but you can get it online. Check it out. As if I've done it, I'm promoting something already. How long are we in? Like 5 minutes.
That's all good.
I've got more from where that came from as well. I've got a football tournament and an event to tell you about later. But yeah, I kind of, because of the book, I was able to go on the FPL show, which was wicked. And I kind of had a trial, I guess, on the show as a FPL pundit, if you like, sometimes referred to as experts. And yeah, that was brilliant. And I've been doing that for like the last few years. And they kind of check out your rank history and make sure you've done something credible in the community, like you're an active Twitter account or whatever. And because of the book, and I spoke to Jules Breach, who was an old friend of mine who I used to work with. And I was like, I would love to come on this show that I see you doing with this guy called Mark Southerns and James Richardson. And she was like, you need to be like credible in the community to come on. I can't just like have my mate in for this trial show. And I was like, oh, actually happens, Jules, that I'm writing a book about fantasy football. She was like, oh, as soon as that's published, I can probably get you on. So I think when I went on the show, I had like, I don't know, 200 Twitter followers, but I had written a book, which was pretty cool. So that worked out really well. And then off the back of that, I've kind of started doing stuff for Fantasy Football Scout. and I do a couple of shows for them a week, and then a few other bits and bobs. And I just love FPL. I've played it for like 13 years. It started mini league with mates. I never even knew about overall rank until about 4 years ago. Literally never even knew I could check what my overall rank was. I played only for mini league success, and I happened to get a few good ranks in between when playing for it. But I mean, I've got, until the last few seasons when I've been on sort of Twitter and stuff, I remember when I wrote the book, I kind of said I was on 7 out of 9 top 1% finishes. So 7 of my last 9 seasons at the time of writing, I think that was 2017-18, were top 1%. And I measured success by percentage because I never knew about top 10K because I wasn't on Twitter. And when we put the books about being in the top 1%, when we put it on Twitter, we got loads of positive, but some negative, being like, who are these idiots that have written a book about being in the top 1%? Like that's some sort of holy grail. It's all about the top 10K. And I was like, oh, okay, didn't quite know that. But, you know, c'est la vie, whatever. Which is quite good for us because Toby and I wrote the book. Actually, loads of our finishes were kind of teens, 15,000, 22,000. So actually, it fit quite nicely in the 1% bracket. Loads of nearly misses with the top 10K, but I'm happy with that.
They're good ranks, mate. I mean, you look at top 1% now, and you hand anyone a top. Well, you hand most people a top 85K finish as it stands now, or better. You'd be pretty happy with that, wouldn't you? You'd be. I mean, I would be. I've only done that a couple of times, and I've not got to the top 10K yet either. So, but then the podcast name kind of covers that. To be fair, awesome. So the book. So, what made you write the book?
Yeah, like I was spending far too much time on WhatsApp chatting to Toby, who I wrote the book with, about FPL. And we didn't know that there was loads of podcasts. We didn't know that there was a huge amount of people producing YouTube content. So rather than say, let's set up a pod or let's do a YouTube channel, our natural thing was, because it's loads of written WhatsApp messages, let's just put some structure to it and actually write a book. We both clearly like writing. We spend all day writing on WhatsApp. And it was really funny. We've got a section in the book about third-party tools to help you with your game. And when we wrote it, I didn't know that Fantasy Football Scout was a paid-for members platform. I didn't know that there were YouTubers with 50,000 or 100,000 subscribers. I didn't know there were podcasts that a huge amount of people listen to. And it's just really funny. Like we wrote this book and it's done really well, but with no help from others, which I think makes it very original. That the input to the book isn't the sort of stuff that you might have seen 1,000 times over on YouTube videos or pods or Twitter, because we weren't on any of that stuff. And even though we wouldn't have wanted to copy it, naturally you absorb so much content, and I do nowadays, I regurgitate a lot of the content I absorb in different ways.
Of course.
So the book doesn't have any of that, which is pretty cool. It's just written from in there, from 2 enthusiasts that have been playing for 13 years, mainly for mini league success, but in the same mini league. And we write a little bit about sort of the mates we play with and sort of some of their casual approaches as well. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Like we struggled at first to even find a publisher, because everyone just said, this is too niche. Loads of people said, we love what you've done here, but it's too niche. And I'm like, what is niche about 6 million players around the world? At the time, I think it was 6 million, now it's at 8. And I think gradually publishers and TV shows and radio shows are all coming around to the idea that FPL is not niche, to the point we now see the assist on BBC Sport. Because that's purely there for FPL, right? When a goal is scored. And we hear it mentioned all the time, and the likes of the BBC are putting out, their own pods on fantasy football. But it's taken a while. It's taken far too long. And I hated the whole, this is too niche for us. It's like, have you seen the numbers that play the game?
Well, what's crazy is that if you look at like, use the NFL as an example, like the whole production of the NFL is geared around fantasy. Like the whole thing is geared around fantasy. So it's included and intertwined in everything they talk about. They were doing it in the cricket today, in the T20. They were literally saying, like, these are the most owned players in fantasy cricket for the day. Fantasy is a huge part of getting us connected to the sport in a better way. So well done on getting a publisher. I'm pretty sure they're quite happy with that decision now anyway.
Yeah, especially because I put them in touch with, I don't know if you guys know Raptor Ross, who wrote The Mind Game, right? And that was published this summer. And Ross told me 18 months ago he wanted to write a book, and again had no idea like how to get it published. And I was like, I know a publisher that will take you guys. So yeah, it's the same publishing house, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
How do you feel like the game's changed since you wrote that then to the last like 3-4 years? Is it just exponential, really?
Yeah, I think it definitely has. Like I guess when I wrote it, I was a keynote. Like I was a massive enthusiast, but I spend way more time on FPL now than I did back then. So, I wrote it from the place of someone that thought they were really good, but actually didn't realize there was so many other better managers than me doing these pods and being on Twitter. I didn't know about these guys. I just knew I was the guy that always won my mini league, right? And actually his ranks are fairly modest compared to some. So I feel like I could write perhaps a book that was perhaps more informative or had even better advice now, because I've consumed so many other elite managers and picked up so much from them. Now my game hasn't improved, and I think that's perhaps the overthinking that we all do when we join sort of bigger audiences, and I've definitely made a few mistakes because people were watching, and I think I probably played up to that at times. And again, when you're playing for mini league success, you make very different decisions than when you're playing for overall rank. Effective ownership is something we all think about now, but when you're playing for mini league success, effective ownership doesn't matter. Effective ownership of your mini league might matter. So yeah, things have definitely changed, but I love the fact that the book was so original when I wrote it back then. And I've thought about doing a volume 2, but I don't think I could produce anything near that sort of level of originality. So still on the back burner.
Not saying no though, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Again, I don't know if there's a demand for it. Like, I don't know. I don't know if this audience wants to consume books per se. Like, every now and then they'll get one. Like myself, I buy one book a year, and it's when I go on holiday, and it's usually an autobiography of a sports person, right? So I don't know. I don't know if our audience are necessarily big readers. I think they're big YouTube watchers and podcast listeners. Not sure they're big readers, but yeah.
Yeah. So what else is in the pipeline for you then? You said you'd be promoting something else. What else is coming up?
So I'm planning two things. I started something called Fantasy Football Festival, and we had our first event in August. It was me and Mark Suddens, who is the GOAT of FPL for me, the creator of Scout, alongside Ed, who's a newbie to the community. The three of us kind of put our heads together and thought, let's produce this meetup that's a little bit more formal and structured than some of the meetups that had taken place before, and something that could allow for big numbers in a big event space, which would have to be ticketed because we want to get hundreds of guests along. So whilst we love and want to go to all the pub meetups that are arranged around the country, and we'll still do that, we thought let's a couple of times a year try and have this formal event which brings in the likes of James Richardson and Kelly Summers, the FPL show presenters, to come and present, have a stage, have a production, and have a meetup for the community. So you buy a ticket, but you get a whole night of structured content, and you meet all your friends from Twitter, which is the most valuable bit you can do, right? So we had our first event in August, just before the season started, actually on deadline day in London at this cool venue. And we had a couple of hundred FPL managers. It was so good meeting not just those on Twitter, but loads from other outside of that had seen my Instagram posts or seen me on the FPL show. So we're going to do a couple a year. We got another event on the 21st of January. So hope you guys watching and listening can come. But for tickets, just check out Fantasy Football Fest online or on Twitter, or me on Twitter. But yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. I hope to see you guys there. I hope you can make it. Where are you guys based? Are you both in and around London, or?
I'm not far. I'm down in Kent.
I used to be not far, but I am up in Aberdeen now, so I am miles away.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I'm miles away now. Yeah, no. So I'm coming down for Christmas in a month's time, and me and Baker we're going to go to the West Ham game and for the Tottenham West Ham Carabao Cup game. Yeah, we had a meet up in July. We had a game of golf and met up with a few other lads, Tottenham lads and stuff, and had a night out, and that was good crack and stuff. And it's always good for me anyway, because I'm the furthest away to pop down and see everyone. Because it's difficult living up here to get down. I mean, in some ways, I'm glad I didn't manage to actually go and see a Mourinho Tottenham game, but you know, there was a small positive there, I guess. But
there was. But yeah, not far from me. Easy enough. Just after my birthday as well, so maybe. It feels like an excuse to come down, mate. You know.
Get on it.
So So yeah.
Hey, we'll be celebrating some big Spurs wins by January as well, I reckon. We'll be talking about Spurs as like nailed for the top 4 and a title contender, maybe. Maybe not title contender this year, but definitely we'll be talking about them actually having a realistic hope of top 4, which I guess you guys didn't think a few months back.
No.
When Nuno started, you must have gone, this is not a manager that's going to get us top 4. He's not playing a sort of football that's going to get us anywhere near it.
No. I'd hoped that maybe he could have stepped up the quality of his management with a better squad, but it was just more of exactly the same. And that's what I almost didn't expect that, but it happened and it was horrible. It was just horrible. Painful.
Yeah. It was relief actually when he went. You know, and then suddenly from him going to like 2 hours later, the rumours coming out that Conte's coming in, and you're like, this can't be happening. I know that it doesn't happen at Tottenham. Like, this doesn't get done in one day. Like, this doesn't happen. Like, we wait 8 weeks and we have Ryan Mason for a long time, and something, caretaker's going to come in, and then suddenly it was like, oh, and it's a strange moment for us because, is Mourinho. That was odd when that was appointed, because it was like, whoa, this is a level of manager that we've never appointed from that reputation side. But it was also one where we were like, Man United fans are telling us this is a bad thing. This is a bad thing. Whereas this is one where it's like, nobody thinks it's a bad thing. You can try and spin it and say, oh, it's got a short lifespan or something in it, but nobody can say it's a bad thing, and that's really interesting for us as Spurs fans, because we've got a lot of players that have underperformed. There's a lot of people that sort of suggest that we've got quite a stale squad and stuff, but we actually have changed a lot of players and actually moved a lot of players out. When you think of the players that have been there a while, you're really only talking Kane, Son, Lloris and Dyer, and 3 of those 4 are very good players that you don't need to move on. The rest of them are virtually newish players. And so they're there, but everybody who's come in has not been as good as the players that were there before, the Vertongans, the Alderweireld, the Walker Rose, all those type things, the Dembele, all of those type, Ericsson, for example, massive losses for us. So it feels like it's a stale squad because the players that have replaced those players have not done the job, but they've spent some money, you can't, and now it's a case of, well, we find out one way or another now. So it's really exciting, but it's also quite daunting in a strange way, because it's like, if this doesn't work out, then we're back to Spurs of 20 years ago and just happy if we get 8th type place, so that's the danger, I suppose, for us. So we wanted to try and get you to come on to tell us how good Conte is, to try and put more pressure on us.
It's funny that you were like, if this doesn't work out, and I guess because you've been stung a bit by Mourinho, but then by Nuno, you're even thinking about what if it doesn't work? Like, the fact that you even mentioned that, like, for me, no need to even mention it. It's Conte. Like, you are 99% guaranteed improvement with Conte. I can't get he can't guarantee success. No one can, but improvement, I think, will be guaranteed within a couple of games. Like, that is absolutely nailed. He will get more out of your players than Nuno did, and you will see better performances than under Nuno. I mean, Nuno was such a strange appointment because Paratici had said he wanted someone that could attack and play the Spurs way, and then he goes and brings a manager that's played quite hesitant football, mainly with a back 5. And I remember in the interview process with Nuno, it was kind of said on interviews pre-season, oh, Nuno can play other ways. He's going to show he can play other ways. In his interview, he kind of spoke about he can play back 4. And it was funny that the success he had got at Wolves was with the 5. He went, I'm going to try and do Spurs football, whatever that is, and go back 4, but not play anything in terms of advanced numbers going forward. So he went with the back 4. The irony being, new guy comes in that's going to play that expansive football. Oh, with a back 5. Well, Nuno, you could have done a better job with your back 5, and you chose not to. Crazy that blew my mind. That did.
It was the fact that they went back to sort of sell him to Levy. They went back to his days in Spain
Yeah.
To
3 years ago.
Exactly, as some sort of justification when he's literally been playing football up the road for the last 3 years. It's not like Levy's been completely devoid of knowing what's going on there. I mean, he would know the football that Nuno plays. I mean, I don't imagine he doesn't pay attention to what goes on elsewhere, as much focus as he needs to have on us, obviously. But he's a football man, as he likes to tell us, so I'd assume he knows. But strange.
So onto pastures new, and that probably starts then with formation. So under Conte, do you think that he will that's three at the back is, the three centre backs is the way for him more, or do you think it could be something else?
I think knowing we've seen what we've seen, which the 2 games and the formation, I think it's very likely he'll stick with a 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, but it will be the back 3. And I don't like saying back 5 when I speak about Conte. Like, if we're talking about Chelsea, we shouldn't say back 5 with Thomas Tuchel, and therefore we shouldn't say it with Conte. If we're talking about when Ollie plays wing backs for United, as we've seen in the last few weeks, we should say back 5. Wan-Bissaka and Luke Shaw don't pass the halfway line. Their positions don't change if they're in a 4 or a 5, which is crazy. Well, Conte and Thomas Tuchel, their main attacking outlet is often the wing backs, which is brilliant, and I absolutely love. And one thing Conte's always done in his career, he's wanted width, right? When he was at Bari, and it was when he was at Bari, kind of built a name for himself, which got him the Juve move. And by the way, when he went to Juve, they were not winning everything. They had finished, I think, 4th the season before, and then he goes to Juve and starts winning the league back to back. But people think, because you managed Juve, it was just guaranteed success. Well, he actually took over at Juve when they were coming up again, because they had got relegated in the Calciopoli scandal back in 2007. And it had taken them a while to rebuild to being a title-winning team. Mourinho was at Inter, I think, at the time, winning leagues. But back to Bari, he was actually playing a 4-2-4, and it was a 4-4-2, but just the wide players were wide forwards, so it became a 4-2-4, 2 DMs. But again, width. At Juve, he played originally, I think he started with the same formation and then moved to 4-3-3. But again, he had fullbacks. I can't remember at the time who it was. I think maybe Patrice Evra was even one of them for a stint under Conte. I think he was.
He was.
And he's always wanted his fullbacks to bomb on. And then at Juve, he did go to a back 3, and he had the likes of Alexandro as a wing back, which worked really well. But yeah, width is key. And I think whether he'll start with the back 3 at Spurs. At Chelsea, he came in and he wanted to play a back 4. And Chelsea had always played a back 4. So I guess that's why he did it. He looked around and thought about the resources he got. When you look at football match, my memory for football matches for my club Chelsea is really bad. But there's one game that I always remember, and it was the game Conte switched formation. And it must have been Arsenal at half-time, right? I think it must have been at the Emirates.
Yeah, it was.
Was it September? It must have been, 6-8 weeks into the season. And he kind of switched it, and he made Marcus Alonso the left wing back that day. At half time, we were losing, and I think we lost the game, but the second half we looked good, and from then on he stuck with it. But he had players like David Luiz. David Luiz looks like one of the worst defenders when he was in the Premier League, in a 2. He looks like the best of centre-back in the league when he's in a 3, right? And you can kind of play to his strengths. He went, I can play my pivot. And when he plays that back 3, the key is the back 3, the middle guy, the David Luiz position, has to be a baller, has to be a deep-lying playmaker. And at Inter, he had De Vrij do it. For Italy, he had Bonucci do it. Bonucci's like my favourite ever centre-back, the best passing centre-back I've ever watched live. Amazing. And at Spurs, he has to buy a new centre-back if he wants that. I think Romero can do that job, but if he wants that deep-lying playmaker, that De Vrij, that Bonucci, that David Luiz, transfer market's needed. Because I look at Rondon and Sanchez, and we know Dyer, and I can't see those guys stepping into that role. I don't know about you, but in terms of passing, they've not quite got it.
Just feel that gone right, isn't he? That's the thing at the moment is that they're playing. He has done it previously, Conte, where almost the ball playing one has been the left or right side. Even Bonucci, I think, did it a little bit. He was like the left side of it for a little while. So he can do it from one of them, but there's definitely always that quarterback type player, isn't there, that will play. But yeah, there is potential that if he didn't get it, that he could do something like move Romero inside and then play, say, Tanganga outside him, or even Emerson could play that right side. He did that towards the end of the Vitesse game when they had 10 men, is he ended up putting Son at right wing back and Emerson dropped into the right centre back position. Obviously that he was off the old Romero was off the pitch, so because he'd been sent off, so there was not that option there. But there is. I do think for the time being, Romero will play the right centre back position, and therefore you do still need that player in the middle that's going to do the baller work.
Eric Dyer used to be a midfielder as well. You'd think of him as someone that could maybe do it, but I don't know if he's that elite level middle of the pivot. And Romero actually did play that role quite often for Atalanta in the middle of the three. So he can play right or middle of the three. But Atalanta didn't play quite the same way out the back. The expectation of that pivot at Atalanta wasn't to make those long passes like De Vrij or Bonucci had done. So whilst Romero can definitely do it, I don't think he's going to do it to a Conte style, per se. No. And I think Romero's amazing. Like, MVP from Serie A last year. The best centre-back, voted as the best centre-back in Serie A last year, beating all sorts of big names. So the pedigree's there, but that's not necessarily his game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, still getting used to the pace of the league and, the fact of he does pick up bookings. He's already on 4 bookings, I think. He's already like one away from a ban, and he's only been here like just over a month. So I think he's been booked in the last 3 games now. So, and then twice in Europe. So I feel like keeping him out of that central role is probably for his own good a little bit as well. So we think 3 at the back. There's talk that in training in these 2 weeks that they're trying to look at a 3-4-1-2 rather than the sort of what we're seeing, which is more of a 3-4-3 in the starting lineup. I guess one of the things that I've noticed is then, if we just stick in defence, is that we definitely can see the shape of it, and then they defend almost as a 5-4-1. Have you seen that previously, where they're out of possession, that they move into that position, and how does that hurt the kind of wingers? So players like Son, for example, who's quick in the counter-attack to get forward. If he's defending in a 5-4-1, that feels bad for me, for him going forward.
Yeah, it would be. If what Conte has done in the past is he's converted wingers or wide forwards even to those wing-back slots. And before we had seen the 2 games we've seen, I did question if there was one of those wide forwards out there that, I don't know, Lucas Moura, that he might go, I can make a wing-back out of you. And maybe that will still come. And when we thought Conte was going to United, straight away I was looking at that right wing-back position going, Wan-Bissaka, he wouldn't even go near Wan-Bissaka as a wing-back. He would go, you offer nothing going forward, I'm not doing it. And he would convert Jesse Lingard or whoever he would convert someone to a good wing-back. And at Chelsea, he did it with Victor Moses. At Inter, he did it with, I don't know, Candreva.
Perisic at Inter is the weird. That's the weirdest one, isn't it? Because I hadn't even really realised that. So I just hadn't noticed last season that he'd been playing wing back, because I just think of him as, like, when you used to think of him as for Croatia. Like, I think of the England-Croatia game, we were together for that one, and he's just a weapon.
Pitch, wasn't he?
He was highest on the pitch. Just an absolute weapon. And then you think, he's playing wing back, and not young anymore either. So there could be one that pulls. I did notice in training. So Ryan Sessegnon's back in training. Nice. He might be an option for the left wing back position. So that could be some competition. I think Bergwijn is probably the most suited of our wingers that could play out there. I think Lucas Moura is just so, he plays the game like an 8-year-old most of the time.
It's just very easy. He's head down, direct, just on he goes. Doesn't think about it.
It doesn't surprise me that he sort of came off, and then we played better in the Everton game. In that you've got players like Lo Celso and Ndombele who can actually play the ball, as opposed to him in the middle. Doesn't look right. So you could either see him, they shift him out wide, or maybe I can see him almost being like auxiliary forward that comes on and presses high up a game when you need to. But Bergwijn and Sessegnon are probably the two in the squad where you look at it and think, well, they could compete. Bergwijn, although technically normally played on the left for Tottenham, is right-footed, so probably from a wing-back perspective goes that way. Matt Doherty obviously came off the bench. Did all right, I thought.
Played on the left.
It's a weird one, that. And was that because... Did he play on the left because Reguilón wasn't having as good a game as Emerson Royale? Or was I didn't check. Was Reguilón on a yellow?
So he definitely wasn't, but he was also on a yellow. So that is... So Reguilón, I mentioned earlier, but one of the things that Reguilón often does is he steams up the pitch, doesn't do good things with it because he's not the best on the ball, and then thinks, oh, I've messed this up. He's quite dutiful in that way. And he goes, I'll just go take the foul for the team. And he just runs up and kicks someone and takes his booking, which is what he did about 15 minutes into the game. So it was then, right, you're living on that. And he's not, I don't know, I don't feel like he is the fittest, when you see him run as opposed to Emerson. So that then he brought Doherty on, but you can't see Doherty starting there.
He's not technically good enough, Doherty, for me, to play for Conte. No. Like, one thing Conte will want to do is pass out the back, right? And he will want triangles amongst those wing-backs and centre-backs and midfield. So many triangles, so much quick passing. Every player in that 11 has to be very comfortable on the ball to play for Conte. Like, I that will be drilled into them, the quick two-touch passing out the back. And at the moment... You're probably not seeing that, Spurs fans, just yet, because he realises the limitations in that 11. But someone like Matt Doherty doesn't, for me, I've always quite liked him as an FPL asset at Wolves and whatever. It made me laugh, the amount of people on Twitter that started, as soon as Conte signed, be like, Matt Doherty, 4.5 million, the eye emoji. And I'm thinking, I know that's tongue-in-cheek, but Conte is master of the technical ability, and this is a guy that doesn't have that sort of pedigree. He's played in the lower divisions, and it's Matt Doherty, right? He's not technically good enough for me. That'd be interesting. Yeah, that'd be to monitor that one. The wing-back slots.
I think the wing-backs are the big one, aren't they? They are ones where we look at value and think we can all afford them. I think when we're going to get to the forward ones, it's like you can probably only afford one, and that makes it a bit more interesting. But the one that I looked at, I sent the stats over earlier, but I looked at last season. How often they come off, because I'd heard that is a regular thing, and it is a regular thing. So into last season, have to remember that Perisic and Ashley Young are not the youngest pair of wing-backs to play on that left-hand side, but they basically shared the role. 18 times Perisic started, 17 times Young started. They both came off the pitch 13 times out of those ones. So 26 times they got subbed out of 35. And 6 of those were pre-60 minutes. And then because they were sharing the role, they also managed to do 25 cameos. So they were coming on for each other. So it's like, people were moaning about Reece James as a potential 1 point off the bench. Well, this is a real bad version of what we used to see with Reece James. So that's a worry. And I don't know whether that's the left side tends to happen or whether it's because they were older, but it almost feels like if you don't really fancy them, it doesn't happen. On the right side, so at the start of the season, Darmian had the role, and then about 8-9 games, Hakimi came in. When Hakimi came in, so he started 29 and he was only subbed 8 times. 8 times is still quite a fair amount, but it's nowhere near what the other ones were. But most of his subs were quite late that he came on. Darmian, similar to Perisic and Young, he started 16 games and was subbed off 11 of them, albeit most of the time when he subbed him off, it wasn't for Hakimi, it was D'Ambrosio was there, so it was almost like waiting for Hakimi to take that role. But once he got it, he did play 90 minutes most of the time. So it does say to me, if one of these two sort of asserts themselves as the premium of those two, he'll do it. And first game, it looks like Emerson, but the booking is a big impact on that. I think we have to see how it goes. But,
I'm really intrigued to see how nailed these wing-backs become. On paper, it's two nailed wing backs, right? Reguilon and Emerson should be like the Hakimi, and Hakimi only didn't start those first like 8 games because I think his transfer had taken a while to go through.
Yeah,
it'd come from Dortmund but owned by Real Madrid, I think, at the time,
yeah.
and then so he was their best player last season. Like Hakimi was Inter's best player alongside Lukaku and maybe Barella, but you kind of look at the wing back and go, yeah, he was. I think Conte made Hakimi, if he wasn't already, the world's best wing back last year, the world's best right wing back for sure. It annoyed me every time people said Trent's the best in the world, and I love Trent, but I'm like, this guy can't get in the England squad. Look at Serie A, because Hakimi is an absolute baller. But yeah, I mean, the fact he shone as one of the best players in the league last year from a wing back, which hasn't traditionally been the sexiest of positions. Well, it is under managers like Conte and Tuchel. Like the fullback has become sexy again. And if Emerson and Reguilon can become a Hakimi starting 29 in the league, for example, you probably take the left side when there was rotation between the likes of Young and Perisic. You go, yeah, perhaps they both had knocks. They're both old. There isn't a guaranteed obvious starter in there. But at the moment, we should have that with Spurs wing backs. I'm quite excited because they're both affordable. Like, they both should get loads of clean sheets and they should be getting a ton of assists because Conte's going to want them sky high. And what we've seen already is Emerson crossing and Reguilon trying to get on the end of it and vice versa. And that's just absolute gold for FPL, isn't it?
It is. The one that's going to be interesting in the conversion of a midfielder is the fact that he needs them to produce. Like that's part of their game for it. You know, Reguilon's played like 29 games in the league for Tottenham now and not scored and had a lot of chances. You know, he's really, really wasteful. So like if you go on like FB Ref and look at like stats and it gives you percentile, so it sort of shows against comparisons and, you know, Reguilon's in the bottom 10% for shots on target, like shots per shots on target, but is in the top like 20% for distance to goal when he shoots. So he's closer than most, but much worse than shooting them. And you're like, if he keeps missing is a problem. Whereas Emerson's looks like the quality is very, very good, but the volume's not there. And it's like, if Conte can get the volume out of Emerson, then he looks like a great, person. You do think with Reguilon, though, is that when he played for Sevilla, when he played for Tottenham under Jose, his job was just press, work. Whereas under Conte, he's going to be just practicing, finishing, practicing, crossing, practicing, finishing, practicing, crossing. And I feel like he is quite a willing guy, Reguilon, that something could happen with them, but they're not the finished article as either of them, I would say, at the moment.
It's definitely something that they will be coached into, and I think it's something that they have been. Not that they've needed to be aware of that kind of part of their game. They haven't been required by previous managers to use it. But hopefully it shouldn't take too long to drill that in. I don't think Reguilon's out on international duty either this break. So, but obviously Emerson is. I think it'd be a lot easier for Emerson to pick it up again because he hasn't had that Mourinho element of coaching around the same squad. I mean, it's always if you get that coaching around the same squad, it's a lot more difficult to break those trends, I guess. Yeah. And I'm wondering, and I'm hoping that elements of I know there's only a few of them left now, but there's still quite a few of them around the squad. In terms of the sort of midway through Pochettino's time at Tottenham, when we were a lot more possession based. Well, we were possession based in the same way almost that we were with Nuno, but we had purpose about the way that we attacked teams.
Aggressive.
There was an element of intent and purpose and aggression about us that we just didn't have under Nuno, and I'm hoping that Conte pulls on, that from some of the players that we've almost forgotten about, and whether that be, and I'm not his biggest fan, but whether that be players like Winks in that pivot, or whether it be players like Ali, for example, who have just sort of disappeared in the last 12 to 18 months. They've just vanished off the face of the earth, basically. And whether we can see some progress from those guys. And even some of the signings that have come in, obviously we probably haven't seen the best of Tanguy yet, although he's got such a low centre of gravity, and he's so good on the ball in small spaces. I'm not sure whether he's got the mobility to move the way that Conte would like him to. Lo Celso's kind of got the ability to do that movement. Don't think he's quite got the quality that Tanguy has. So you kind of want a mix between the two, if possible. You want a Tanguy Lo Celso if you can, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see
midfield.
that.
So yeah, we say Son and Kane to last then. So
of course.
Listen. So midfielders under Conte. So I guess the interesting ones is that the more attacking ones. So a Lo Celso and Ndombele, or there's rumours that Ali might be in that 3-4-1-2, might be making his way back into the team. From an international break perspective, so in the defender piece, just to clarify, is Dyer, Tanganga, Reguilon, Sessegnon. They're kind of the guys that they're the only people that may be around that have stayed. But in the middle, you've got Ali's there, Ndombele's there, Winks is there. Them sort of players are Mora's there as well. Do you see under that type of system there being other midfield important? So like if I think of Chelsea, for example, under Tuchel type thing, they're kind of nice, but they're not really who you want. You either want the strikers or you want the wing backs. Like the midfielders, it's always like, well, if the price is all right and the fixtures are good, maybe, but realistically that they're not the ones. And is it going to be sort of similar under Conte, do you feel?
I think it will be, unless he goes for that. If it is a 3-4-1-2, which at times we did see it at Inter, not necessarily playing with an out-and-out 10, but from those midfield three, you can usually write off one, if not two of them, just from the positions. So there will be, let's go with Inter, right? Brozovic, the deep-lying tackler, enforcer, good eye for a pass, alongside a full of energy, box to box, but also creative and got assists, Barella. That's the position you go for in FPL of the three. Okay, he's box to box, he'll get some goals and can get assists, and we'll see him in lots of attacking positions and running late into the box. And then if you go for that third spot, well, at times, certainly in the second half of Conte's season last year, Christian Eriksen was there, but he wasn't playing as the Eriksen you always saw at Spurs. He was slightly deeper. But again, he was on set pieces, had a little bit of set piece threat. But other than that, you weren't seeing bags of goals or assists there. So you look at that and go, you've got your creative but slightly deeper Eriksen, your tackler in Brozovic, your Højbjerg, your controller, and then your box to box, but perhaps get some into those goal scoring positions in a Barella. So who is that Barella position? Will it be Dele? I'm not so sure early on. Will it be Ndombele? Possibly, but again, like I have question marks over his energy levels to go all game. And like, if anyone can get him fit, though, it will be Conte, and that is exciting. But the first tweet I put out when I heard about Conte was players to watch out for, and I didn't want to go Kane, Son, Reguilon. I was like, outside of the obvious, who would you keep an eye on? And for me, and I said it the minute I heard it, and I don't know if that's because I've always liked this player, but I feel like Lo Celso could become the Barella type. There is bags of talent there. We haven't seen it in a Spurs shirt. The guy plays for Argentina. Doesn't get in the squad. He gets in the 11. We know there's pedigree there somewhere. We just haven't seen him adjust to the Premier League, and perhaps we haven't seen him played in the right role, in the right system for the right manager. He's always one that I've thought would benefit from a midfield three. He's not an out-and-out 10. He's sometimes a little bit more than an 8, but he would benefit from having a passer and a tackler next to him. And I just think Barella was so successful under Conte, and I wonder if, I don't want to compare Lo Celso to Barella, who's one of my favourite players, but I wonder if he could do similar things in a similar position, in a similar system. And I just wonder if he can, then he becomes a great FPL asset. He is always injured, which doesn't help. But again, some players, their injury records massively get better when they're happy playing for a new manager. Oh, and actually when they're playing every week, because when they're playing every week, they're becoming fitter and
stronger, and
all that jazz. Like I look at Michail Antonio. Whilst we all know his hamstrings are still suspect, when Antonio's been getting guaranteed starts every week, he actually is fitter a lot more than you think. It was when he's coming in and out of the team, he was pulling his hamstring every week. So, yeah, Lo Celso's one I'd probably, out of all the midfielders, I mean, Dele, if he becomes a starter, we know there's goals there. But I just think Lo Celso, there could be something in that.
I can't see the way that he doesn't come into the team. And the fact that we just massively improved, when he came on for Everton, that's before the red card. People see the red card at the end and think, oh, that's it. But actually, we somehow then got worse again once the red card is, because then we didn't know what to do. A lot of teams don't know how to play against 10 men, but there was a moment leading up to that where we had a good spell and Lo Celso was fully in it. The other thing with Lo Celso is that when he's on the pitch, is the majority of set pieces are his. All free kicks are his.
Nice.
All the right-sided corners is the only side the Son gets and doesn't always even get it, is the left side corner. So that is not always good for Son from a FPL perspective if Lo Celso does come into the team, because
what do you guys think of him? Do you you must be frustrated from what you've seen so far, but do you think there's a player in there?
Yes, but it's almost a bit of a joke. Like there's a Twitter account that you probably won't see, but it's called Stop It GLC. Is what it's called. Right. And it's just stupid things that he does, and he does do stupid things that just almost feel a bit like he doesn't care sometimes, and it's almost just a bit lackadaisical, especially because of how well you see him play for Argentina, and feels like he's just really giving it for them. And I just feel like if that tightens up, there's a really, really good player over there. There's so many sloppy things that happen, and you're just like, seriously, Stop It GLC. That's exactly how it comes out. It's a wonderful account. He actually, Stop It GLC, unfortunately got banned last week by Gianni Lo Celso.
No,
It got blocked. He actually has found it and blocked it, which is magnificent. But it's frustrating because there's a player that it's also frustrating as a Spurs fan, because we bought Ndombele and Lo Celso at the same time and effectively spent 100 million on them. And then what happens is, because of fitness, one plays 60 minutes of the game, the other one plays the other 30 of the game, and they've come off so many times. You're like, we've actually paid 110 million for one player here that doesn't do very much. You know what I mean? And because of the timing of when it happened, and then Bruno, who was also linked to us at the time, came in for United, and you see for literally half the price, they've got Bruno doing what he was doing. That we will always think of Lo Celso as it should have been Bruno a little bit. So there's a bit from Spurs fans where it's tainted for that way. But we can see there's a player there. We just want it to come out. Yeah,
I think I don't know if it's from his time in Spain and just seeing him for Argentina that makes me think it can happen. But I thought Mourinho, who really bigged him up in a couple of interviews, Lo Celso. So he's clearly doing a lot of stuff right on the training field for Mourinho to be singing his praises as he was, because he wasn't doing it on match days. But I'm excited to see how that could work. And if it's the three that play in similar positions to where they were at Inter, the Brozovic, Eriksen's and Barellas, or if he does go with two defensive-minded players and plays Skip and Højbjerg, and then tries and plays a 10, and whether that's Ndombele in a 10 or Lo Celso, or maybe trying to get something out of Dele, or perhaps it's Lucas, as we've seen him popping up in central areas with his head down, running into blind alleys. I don't know. Lucas is, as we mentioned earlier, a little bit too head down for me, which is why he needs to play wide, because when you're out wide, you actually do get the space. But when you're in those congested areas, you need to have vision, and you need to be a quick thinker as well. And I'm not sure if Lucas ticks those boxes. So let's see what happens there, because if you get a 10 and it is Dele or Ndombele or Lo Celso, well, these guys are all cheap FPL assets playing not out of position. They're midfielders playing in midfield, but very advanced midfield in the 10 role. So again, it will be one to watch as a cheap alternative to a route of goals, because you've got to spend serious money to get one of the other two, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a taste of what the shape is going to look like, and I think he's got enough players. I think he's got enough players still at home from international duty to work the international break really well, and I think Leeds is going to be a really big game as a
huge
as a way Conte is going to want to make his mark, and I think I think always the Vitesse and the Everton game were always too close together. They were always too soon after the appointment. Everything happened so quickly. It was just a case of get in. This is what I need you to do. Go and do this for me, and this is what you were going to drill into you over the next coming weeks, basically weeks/months. Obviously, wanting weeks first because I'm expecting him to instill his philosophy a lot quicker than because he's not going to wait around, is he? He's not going to wait around for anyone that doesn't buy into it. So Leeds for me is a big game, and I'm kind of worried from an FPL point of view because I can't get to either of them. Actually, I can't get to either the two guys that we're going to talk about next, I guess. Which is a bit painful for me. I've sent Baker a number of different transfer transfer permutations. I'm like, I could do this and I could do this. I can get to Son and I can get to Kane, and he
hits, yeah,
with hits, and you just calm
though?
down.
Do you feel like you need to for that Leeds game? I know people will earmark the Leeds defence, but it's improved in recent weeks, the Leeds defence. And also, I'm like, yes, Conte's got 2 weeks for these guys, but most of the main men are still away on international duty. So I'm happy waiting a week, I think.
I
still
know,
think. Yeah,
so that's a long time. Like, because it's the late game on the Sunday. It's the 4:30 game Sunday. Like, England are playing San Marino Tuesday night. Like, actually, even having Wednesday to Sunday is a long time in nowadays, in a normal week, like with Europe and all of those things. You don't normally get that. Like, so even
have we not got 3 games this international break? Is it just 2?
No, I think Tuesday night. That's it, done.
Oh, cool.
And most are. It's not even like the Brazil. I think are finished Thursday. I think something like that. I think everybody's back by Friday morning.
That's good for Brazil.
And then
from recent weeks.
We're not chasing planes, all that stuff. So I think there's plenty of time there, and also obviously those that are coming in, they're coming in whilst the others are doing stuff, and I do feel like there's a lot of stuff where it's video based, and now they're showing people the stuff, and they will still be sending people stuff, and they've got nothing to do. It's like, watch this, So let's go to the big one. So we should disclaimer first on these ones then, just because we might caveat those ones. Johnny, have you got either of them at the moment?
I don't. And my plan. Do you know what? Last week I did my team reveal video on Scout, and I was everyone was saying, you need to get Son. You need to get Son. And everyone moved to Son last week. His value went up, and I wanted him. Don't get me wrong, but because I owned Havertz, everyone was saying you need Son, and I was like, Havertz is about to play Burnley at home. I'm not selling Havertz for Burnley at home for anyone. So whilst that Havertz spot in my team has always been earmarked and booked for Son, and it still is, I didn't pull the trigger on it, and it meant this week I can. But again, I'm waiting on the Lukaku and Werner news because I might give Havertz one more week. And this giving me that extra week allows me to go, actually, it's not Son I want, it's Kane. And actually, as the international break has gone on, already that's what I'm thinking. And if I can only have one, and I do think I will only go for one unless we start seeing Conte's team score 3, 4, 5 every week, I think I want that to be Kane, and therefore I need to move money around, and getting Kane's even harder than getting Son. It needs hits and all sorts, but I think it might be worth it. Conte's 9s always do well. Diego Costa at Chelsea, Lukaku.
My disclaimer is that I will be going Kane, so therefore I'm about to propaganda why everyone should go Kane. So I'll
are you both going to go Kane then?
I can't get anywhere near him at the moment because I've got Jimenez, Antonio, and Jesus up top, and I would need to break away from 2 of those. Antonio, I've got so much value in, and Jimenez is about to come up against Burnley and Norwich, I think. So and Man City's fixtures aren't getting worse, so I'm kind of like, well, do I take hits for Kane and get 2 shitters, or 1 shitter with Kane and then take hits? Is that going to be better than, I don't know, could Jimenez bag a couple of, if Jimenez bags a couple against Burnley, it kind of negates that completely. It's like, well, what's or Norwich, which is perfectly feasible. I mean, it's tough.
I think the point is because of Salah and the ownership of Salah, I think he allows some patience for everybody, because the captaincy is almost like void, in a way. So therefore is that I do think if people want to wait, they can wait. On them both, what's your thoughts from a Conte perspective? They both sounded good, Lukaku and Lautaro, if you think of them last season. Do you feel that they're both good again?
Yeah, like I've no doubt if you go Kane or Son, you're gonna do all right. Like it's just you want to be on the one that's the real winner. And I do think like we've seen it in the past with Kane, last season was a bit different actually because we saw very similar numbers. But if we take last season out of the equation, you go Talisman, you go Kane, and whilst he's been unhappy and not performing, you've got to think that's going to change. And loads have seen the hat-trick against the other night against Albania and gone, oh, I want to bring him in just because he scored a hat-trick from international football. That is very different, and he was playing Albania. Like there isn't a weaker Premier League team than Albania, right? Norwich would put up a better fight, I'd have thought.
I think it's more as well that England are a much better team. We just talked about the midfield of that, and then you've gone, well, James Chilwell, we're trying to work out who can play wing back for Tottenham or whether those ones will do it. And then you've got, Henderson, Phillips, Foden in the middle, and we're like trying to see if we can get a player out of Celso, and Højbjerg and Dele and all those things. So it's the company is there, but I think from the Kane perspective, it's actually the shot that gets tipped around the corner was the shot that was the one for me. It wasn't the second or third goal. It's our first goal. He has the shot and he does the jink and he plays that shot, which is just almost like muscle memory when he does that shot. Yeah. And we just haven't hardly seen that shot for Tottenham. That is just like it always there in his locker. And then suddenly it's like, oh, he does that. And I'm like, he's on it. And then he does the peel off at the back post and then he puts that one wide. And you're like, maybe he's still a bit scratchy. And then he just goes mad. And you're like, okay.
He wants it.
I think positionally was great for him. He wasn't being expected to pull deep so much, even though he did have those. He had the outlets in particular with like Sterling and obviously with the wing backs there as well. So you could have forgiven him if he'd have been playing a little bit deeper to look wide. But the thing for me, which one was it? I'm trying to think which one was it. I think there was a cross in. No, it was a cross in from James, and I think it was a header wide. But it was just. I think it was a cross in from James to the near post, and it was a header wide. But I think Kane played the ball out to James in the first place, took a touch, and his eyes just went, "I'm going into that space," and he made a run that I haven't seen him make all season. I'm going there, and he pointed at the back post deliberately. I remember he pointed at the back post, ran across the defender towards the front, met the header, and it was like. He meant that. That's the kind of get in those positions, dive for the ball. I want to score a goal. Kind of just hunger that you hadn't seen so far. And you caveat it with. I mean, we caveat shit every week saying, "Oh, it's Newcastle, it's Norwich." Yeah, fine, it was Albania, but the movement and the attitude and the way he was carrying himself was different.
Yeah.
Let me do the caveat. In 14, in game week 14, he's home to Brentford. And in game week 15, he's at home to Norwich. So he's against promoted teams. And let me tell you about Kane and promoted teams. He's played, in his career for Tottenham, he's played 37 times against promoted teams. 39 times against promoted teams. He scored 37 goals and 4 assists. He bashes up promoted teams. It's what he's always done. He's scored against more teams than anybody else has ever done in the Premier League. And Brentford's a new one for him to add to the list. He loves them. So maybe not now, but 14, 15, I don't understand how people stay away from him. And Leeds and Burnley in the next two.
You can't stay away. And if you look at your team and go, I can't make it happen. And like 2 of the 3 of us are probably looking at our teams going, I can't get Kane in. Like I've got Antonio and Jimenez as well, right? But you look at those fixtures, and if he has scored, I don't know, a goal against Brighton and a goal against Leeds in the next 2, or looks really sharp, you can always make it happen in FPL. Whether it's a 4-point hit or an 8-point hit, you can always make it happen. And for those game weeks, then one of those, I've not looked at Liverpool's fixtures, but when he's playing Brentford and Norwich, what are Liverpool doing?
Away, because both games.
There might be you definitely can take hits if you're going to give your guy the armband, right? And Kane might be a captain option.
Away to Everton, Merseyside derby in 14, and then away to Wolves in 15.
Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe it still goes Salah, but
they will be. The most will still go there, but it's like I feel like I can take that on.
Yeah.
I think a few people will take Salah on straight away. Actually,
you're not captaining Son though, are you? Like you'd consider captaining
not against
Kane.
Salah.
There's just something about Son which doesn't make you want to captain him, and Kane you will. It's the penalty appeal. It's the 90-minute appeal. It's the fact that Conte doesn't want his strikers dropping deep in that 9.5 role that he was playing under Mourinho. And if you are playing wing backs, as we saw with England, as we've seen with Inter, and Hakimi's delivery to Lukaku for all those goals, well, if you're playing wing backs, you have to have a 9 in the box all the time or it's pointless. Yep. And Conte's going to have wing backs. We know that.
And under Conte last season, so gave the stats early on the wing backs, but Lukaku started 34, started 32 4 times. He was substituted out of his 32. They were literally, all of his subs were like 85, 89 minutes, like the end. He came off the bench 4 times, as nailed as any man could possibly be under Antonio Conte. Lautaro Martinez started 22 times he was substituted out of his 30 games.
That is an interesting one, that.
Over 2/3 of the games he came off. He came off the bench 8 times as well, so 1-pointers. Don't get me wrong, he scored well under him, so he still delivered, but not nailed. And we haven't got a lot of striker options, but if Lucas Moura loses the 10 role, which he almost certainly will, I think everybody says that, I feel like Lucas Moura is the potential ruiner of Heung-min Son as a fantasy person, because I feel like he can come on for that last 20 minutes because he runs around a lot more. Yeah. He's done it many, many times, scored a really great goal against Man City, just literally runs on the pitch, jumps for a header.
Score a header.
Incredible. Literally didn't stop running from coming on the pitch and scoring it. He's good at that. And I feel like he can, if you tell him that's what you're doing, he'll do it. And he'll do that for 20 minutes. That I feel works quite well for him. And in that, the European game, he left Moura up top with Son and he left Moura up top with Kane, and he put Son right wing back before they both got subbed off. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because he presses further. He's a harder presser. Son does not press very well. And I'm like, if you're 1-0 up, or if you need something, I could just see that Moura, if he loses that number 10 spot, becomes an issue for him.
And Son's been subbed in both games.
Yep.
Again, like, we wouldn't have seen that in the past. When does Son get sub 2 or 2? Like, it's quite rare. Like, in 2 tight finishes, you want your finishers on the pitch, and he weren't deemed a finisher in either of those very tight games. So he's not 100% sold with Son like he is a Kane, for example. That puts me off him a little bit.
About this time last year, we had a not as esteemed guest. One of our personal mates, Jack, came on the call. He was doing particularly well at FPL at the time, but like normally deleted the game by about December. But Son had been doing, and Kane had just been doing amazing stuff. And he came on the pod and was like, "Son's in the mud." And I don't think at any point anyone had said on FPL community or anything in the mud at that time. And we literally clipped it and we kept playing it, and now everyone says it. Yeah. But he claims that he started the in the mud. I remember a few weeks after Adam Hopcroft saying on Green Arrow he hadn't got Son in and had taken all the pain off it, and said, I don't see it anymore. I think it's on the decline with it. So I looked at the stats, and game week 1 to 11 last season, Son averaged over 9 points a game. Game week 12 to 22, he averaged 4 last season. It does go on these runs where it suddenly goes a bit bad.
Yeah.
If you were looking at one or the other for me, it's not even close at the moment for the two of them.
Yeah.
So I'll be over the moon if Son gets a hat-trick on the weekend because I'm a Spurs fan. But
it's win-win, isn't it?
Yeah, it's win-win. But for me, it's not even close.
I think I was sold on Son until, like, I don't know, after when Conte was announced, I was like, he's the one I can easily get. They'll match each other's points. Now I've had 2 games of watching the team. I've seen Son's subs, and I've still been impressed by it. Like, Son's still great, don't get me wrong. For everyone that's already bought him and thinking, I should have got... Don't worry, like, you're still going to get points there. But seeing Kane hungry again for England, seeing the positive comments we've seen from Conte, getting Kane's way harder for me, but I will make that happen, and he will be in my team like for for those fixtures. But I do want that Leeds game as one more game of eye testing. Like that's really key. Like I don't think I'm going to go see 5-0 Spurs, and I've got to make waves to get one of them for this weekend. And I therefore am very happy going, yeah, I might lose a couple. They might both return, sure. Maybe I should have gone early, but at the same time, I want to 100% make sure that I'm going for the right one, and Leeds helps me do that and just confirm, hopefully, that it's Kane.
Same for me. I mean, I will normally watch all of the Tottenham games. I don't watch as much of the other games as I probably should for someone who needs to comment on a podcast every week, but I'll watch as much of Tottenham as I can, but for some reason, well, not for some reason, I had personal reasons why I couldn't watch Tottenham last week. So I watched the game against Vitesse, which was absolutely nuts for many reasons,
Was nuts.
And I didn't get to watch the Everton game, so I don't have that eye test sort of validation in my mind as well. And as a Tottenham fan, that makes it even harder for me to actually say I want to jump in now. And you know, I did do the little mini drafts, and I sent them across to Baker. They were a bit kind of tongue in cheek. I was like Jota, Origi, and Kane for just basically just rip up my team completely. So I'm thinking about it, but I'm happy to be with you on this one, Gianni, and go one more week and see what happens.
I think both are good ways, and you're not actually going to get hurt very much. I mean, the good thing about, or the weird thing about international breaks is just no one makes any transfers. Like literally no one does anything. If you look at any like the analytics, FPL analytics, for example, they comment every hour of all the transfers, and it's like top transfers, like 200 transfers an hour in a game of 8.5 million at the moment. It's like no one's doing anything. I checked it quite eagerly after the hat trick, thinking, hello, this is going to pick up.
Yeah.
And he went up for 1 hour. He went up to 1,000 an hour in 1,000 people. I'm like, this is nothing. Like he went from 40. He's like, I literally screenshot it. 40,000 in he did before his transfer, before his hat trick, and he's now on 50,000. Like after a weekend, So 10,000 people have brought him in since he scored 3.
More people have brought in Sam Maximan so far this week.
Wow.
That's the stat, mate. That is the stat.
Yeah. More on Adam Armstrong. I've got all of them here. Yeah.
It's good thoughts. It's probably us on Tottenham, isn't it? Everyone's probably sick of this right now. I will ask, actually, as we have got, feels like I'm tainting a Tottenham one to talk about Chelsea, but a lot of people have got Chilwell and James, haven't they?
Yeah.
Or 2 Chelsea defenders for that, and they got them for this run. How do you feel about them as a Chelsea fan going forward? How can you possibly come off either of them?
The upside's just there. It doesn't matter if they don't play one game. It doesn't matter if the opposition's tough. Thomas Tuchel doesn't. I love the way Thomas Tuchel says about his formation. He actually refers to it as a front 5 and back 5, and I love that. And the front 5 includes 2 defenders. Well, yes, please, for FPL. I have James, not Chilwell, and I made the sideways move of Rudiger to Reece James back in game week 8, I think it was. I'd wildcarded with Rudiger in. At the time, Reece James was injured, and we hadn't seen Chilwell getting regular starts or even starting. And I was really worried because I was like, such a sideways move, Rudiger James. But I had a free transfer, and I was like, I just know that the points are going to be there in wingbacks. And the first week I did it, Reece James came on for a cameo and got 1 point and blocked like a really good first sub I had, probably Livramento. And I was really annoyed. But long term, boy, has that move paid off. Like Reece James is doubling Rudiger's points at the moment, and Rudiger's so highly owned. I would encourage anyone on Rudiger to swap him for either of the wingbacks because they're the same price, give or take, and you're going to get so many more attacking returns. And if you're worried about the whole he's not nailed, well, yeah, probably neither of them are. If we're talking nailed is someone that plays, I don't know, starts 9 in 10 games. Maybe these guys will start 7 or 8. But it doesn't matter because when they do, look at the goal scoring positions they're getting into. And as amazing as Reece James's points have been in the last few weeks, I take that Burnley game and I think he got 7 points. He could have got 7 assists, the guy. It was ridiculous. Yeah. And if you're going for one or the other, I've always been very pro Reece James, and not the biggest fan of Chilwell just as a player, forget FPL, but actually that does translate for FPL even at the moment. Reece James is looking the more threatening, both for goals and assists. So I'd veer towards James. Yeah.
Well, I just dropped my phone trying to check and make sure that and see who I did actually have. I think I've got James. Yeah, I've got James and I've got Rudiger and I've got Mendy as well.
Oh,
so,
nice.
So
I love that differential. That's the problem. If we've all got so many Chelsea and we've all got Trent and Cancelo, how do we even think about getting a Spurs fullback in?
Well, that's it. And it was just about 10 minutes ago, you went, I was never selling Havertz for Burnley. Yeah, so I did. But I had to...
Did you do what I did and bought Havertz in so you could captain him a few weeks ago when Salah went Chicken Oriental? Because I did that. Yeah. Yep.
And then I transferred him out for the Burnley game and brought in Foden and transferred out Diaz, who got a clean sheet against United for Reece James. So it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. Just the Vidra goal just absolutely killed me.
Oh yeah, when you got triple defence, you get
horrible
a late Burnley goal in
Burnley.
Didn't see that coming either. Like Chelsea were comfortable till the last 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm loving wingbacks this season. Like I look at the Chelsea lads, and I'll probably only ever have one because I've got Cancelo, Trent, and Livramento deserves to be getting starts in all of our teams, and I think I've benched him for 6 of the last 7. Like he's been getting so many good points.
I benched in the last 3, but I brought in Aspi on wildcard, and Aspi's subbed out for him for the last 3 games, so Lucky. I've got them all. So yeah, I've got them out, but I have now got what I class as right wing backs the whole way almost, because I still class Cancelo as that. But I now have Trent, Cancelo, I have James, I have Emerson, who I've gone for, and I've got Livramento. So it's going to be very difficult to bench them, I think, going forward, those ones. So therefore, I'm going to try and spend some money up top.
I ducked out there for a second, so I picked up my phone. I wasn't literally avoiding the fact you saying...
Did you do a transfer?
No, I didn't. But what I was really trying to do was avoid listening to you talk about how you've fucking got Livramento 3 weeks in a row from Azpilicueta.
I am starting in this week.
The amount of auto subs, like everyone 2 weeks ago got Livramento from Mbomo, and it's like, honestly, I think Toby told me the other day, I think I've had 3 auto subs all season. It's ridiculous, and none of them have been Livramento's amazing points each time. But no, I'm going to just go for Chelsea right backs. Like I'm going to go Lamptey, I'm going to go Livramento, I'm going to go Reece James. I'm just going to make a team of Chelsea right backs because seems to be so many.
The talent machine is disgusting at the moment from Chelsea. I mean, Gallagher, it never ends.
Yeah, Gay at Palace centre back, like
amazing.
He's sensational. I'm gutted we sold him, but you look at it and go, all those that perhaps are good enough, but just are deemed not good enough, that go on to other good Premier League clubs and perform. Livramento, prime example. He was nowhere near getting in that Chelsea team, like nowhere near. Like players like Lamptey, another good example, are above him in the pecking order, and you're like, these are very good Premier League, maybe even will become international players. That's how good the academy is.
Yeah, we haven't got that, Tottenham.
I mean, Chelsea just seem to mop up everyone in London. Like, it's probably very difficult for the other academies to be that competitive. Like, the Chelsea and the City academies are just head and shoulders because City mop them all up north and Chelsea do down south.
Yeah. Sad times. God,
it's not great.
Lamptey or Livramento, wouldn't we?
Yeah, do you know what? I'd love an even. I don't mind that. I'd happily take an even spread because otherwise we're just selling too many good assets. It's just frustrating as a fan. Like every fan wants academy players coming through. Don't get me wrong. I love having the best academy in London, but if it was a little bit more balanced, I don't like the fact that we are allowing really good talents to leave, like Livramento. Like and Gay is prime. Tamori. I mean, for God's sake, Tamori. I think Tamori will be starting for England in 2 years' time. Like. He's that good. He's that good. And I don't know, maybe he won't be because he plays in Italy and it's Farmers League. But Gareth Southgate just won't look beyond that. But and therefore there's not that pressure on him to pick someone like Tamori. But Christ, we're in the market for a new centre back. Rudiger might leave, and Christensen still could as well. His contract's up soon. Hope he stays. Another academy prospect, despite being Danish. And I'm like, we've just sold Gay and Tamori, like 2 brilliant English centre-backs. Well, there's a run over.
There's a run over. With that, last one, captain this weekend. Come on, let's do something for this weekend. Is anyone break? To be honest, if you looked at it, the only one I would take it on this week is Kane, but it's too big.
I'm just
It's
having
too
a...
big. I mean, two of us have been stung for Havertz going against Salah. It's still too raw and too fresh for me. Like, that was 24 free points. The non-Salah captain has missed out. 24 free points. Like, captaincy's a joke. When does your captain ever get 24 points? Well, I'll tell you when. Once a season. Oh, and it happened the time I didn't give him the armband. So I can't. Like, Liverpool at home to Arsenal. I mean, Man City, Everton. I know Everton kept a cleano against you boys, but before that, they looked so weak at the back against Wolves.
Yeah.
And then, who scored? Someone scored 5 against
Watford.
That. Watford scored 5. Wolves should have scored 5. Spurs, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I just wonder if Phil Foden could run riot against Everton. But again, it's going to be Salah.
Grealish and Sterling got knocks, haven't they, at the moment? So that almost guarantees probably Foden probably on the left side maybe again.
Yeah, which I think I prefer for points, you know. I like Foden left and not as the false 9, but
So we've got Foden and Kane as the outsiders if you want to punt away from it. You thought about Cancelo, didn't you?
Why wouldn't you have Cancelo as well? Man's flying at the moment as well. Domestically, Europeans. I didn't see what he did in the internationals. Did he get an assist? No, they didn't. They drew 0-0 with Ireland, didn't they? So clean sheet, happy days. So
yeah. Stick with Salah, mate. I'm sticking with Salah.
I feel like his effective ownership will be lower again this week. I think it will drop again.
Yeah,
I think it has to.
Take hits for Kane as well, though. So I'm going to take a hit for Kane. It almost like then says, "Oh, I should double down. But hey, that actually just makes the pain worse. It's a bit like the Havertz one. It actually wasn't those effective points. It was worse than that because most people also hit him in.
Same.
Both you two. So
took 8 points for that.
So it's the bigger one, and therefore you're not just taking on Salah, you're also taking him on with, from a deficit piece to start with, and it's like, don't go there. Cool. Well, it's been lovely.
Great.
It has been good.
Thank you guys for having me. I'd love to come back on, and I look forward to checking you guys out on YouTube too. Like, I've obviously listened to the pod a few times, and I'll make it more of a regular listen having met you, but good that you're on YouTube too. So,
I will definitely reciprocate. I'll be adding the social to my list.
Thank you, mate. And good of you to give me my 3rd or 4th plug of the show. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's what we do. We spread the love. That's what we do.
What was the date for Fest again? What was that?
21st of Jan. That's the big one. Like,
where is it?
Forget about the book or following me on Twitter or listen to a pod. Just, you will not regret coming to Fantasy Football Festival. 21st of Jan. It's like one iconic venue, like Waterloo Arches. Looks amazing. It feels very worthy of buying a ticket. And yeah, you'll be surprised the amount of people you meet there that you've perhaps interacted with on Twitter or whatever. It'll be a hell of a night.
Cool. Tweet us a link and we'll retweet it out from the pod tomorrow.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff. So, as a final note, make sure you go follow all of us on Twitter. The podcast is at Above Average FPL. Baker is at Baker FPL343. Gianni is at Gianni Butticè. And yeah, Gianni, thanks again for coming along and chatting to us about Conte. It's much appreciated, mate.
Thank you, guys.
Good stuff.
Have a good week.
Cheers.